All right, to start beginning gridding your paper, the first thing I want you to look for is on your ruler, double check to see if your ruler starts at the very end. So mine actually has a part where you begin measuring right here. It actually doesn't start right at the end. So I'm gonna line this line up with the end of my paper here. If yours does start right at the end, if you don't notice like a little line that looks like this, that's fine. So if you have that line that begins the ruler, just make sure that you use that, okay? Now this paper is 9 by 12, I believe. So what we're going to do is to line this up. I'm gonna line up my ruler where it starts, and I'm gonna look for the, let me see, the 4 and the 8, okay? So the long line that represents the inch mark for the 4, so I'm gonna look for the 4 here, put a little notch right at the 4 and a little notch right at the 8. Note how my ruler is at the top of my paper here, and I'm doing this right along the edge. Okay, I'm gonna do the same thing on the same long side at the bottom. So I'm gonna line up my ruler where my ruler starts, and right at the edge of my paper, I'm gonna put a little notch at the 4, a little notch at the 8, so both the long sides. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect them. So I'm going to line up the ruler notch to notch, connect it top to bottom, line up the ruler notch to notch, and connect top to bottom. Okay. Now on these other sides, I'm going to rotate my paper real quick. On these other sides, I'm going to line up my ruler for the short sides. And again, my ruler doesn't start right at the very end, so I'm lining it up with there. And this is about 9 inches long. So we're going to go ahead and put a little mark at the 3 and a little mark at the 6. Note how my ruler is lined up with the edge here. And I'm going to do the same thing down at the bottom. So 3 and 6. Okay. And then I'm going to line my ruler up, notch to notch, hold it down, line the ruler up, notch to notch, hold it down, okay? So I have something that looks like this in front of me. Okay, so this is my grid. Now what I'm doing is I'm gonna use my gridded image here, okay, to begin my drawing, okay? Now a couple things before we get started. I am going to start looking at each quadrant, or sorry, each like little section of here. So I have basically 9 sections. And what I'm going to start to do is look at where my main lines of my image, how they interact with this grid right here. Okay, so for example, this top grid here, this top section, top rectangle, I'm just gonna take it rectangle by rectangle, okay? So this is what I have for this one. This one represents this one here. And I'm going to look where our main lines intersect with the grid line. So I'm mainly going to just draw the flower, and so it looks like about halfway over here is where this line intersects. It comes up just a little bit, up and then over just a little bit and off the page. Okay, it doesn't come halfway up, it maybe comes a third of the way up, so I'm good right now. Okay, then for this next one below it, again, I'm going to look where things interact with this grid line. So note that the same line comes down just a little bit and interacts with this line, maybe right about here. So maybe about a quarter of the way down, it interacts. This kind of comes over, out, and like this. I'm also going to look at this line here. It starts right here. It starts right below that grid line. It comes down through the center of the page, and look where it interacts with this area right here. So maybe a third of the way up, it kind of goes off the page. So I'm going to sketch that line out like so. So what I'm doing to sketch out my flower so that it's in proportion is I'm looking to see where the main lines of my flower interact with my vertical and horizontal lines. I'm asking myself, where does this line intersect? Okay, if it crosses over about halfway, I know that this line has to, on my paper, also has to cross over halfway. Okay, so always ask yourself where the main lines of your flower interact with the grid lines, and just take it, honestly, just take it square by square, rectangle by rectangle.